Welcome back to Homeopathy at Home with Melissa. Hey, Melissa.
Hey Bree, it's great to see you.
It's great to be here always. Today, whatever time you're listening, but we're recording in the evening. Um, this is an exciting one. I think you guys are going to love this. A question I know you get all the time, Melissa, in classes or as we talk to people is how to take a case.
Yeah,
So we're going to discuss that.
yeah. It is a question I get a lot, like, especially in classes where most of the classes are focused on learning the remedies, learning the protocols, learning, when to use which remedy. Well, how to use each remedy, what potency, how
Mhm.
often, what remedy is good for this. But the whole process starts with the case taking. You have to take a good case to come to a good remedy.
Yeah. Well, and you have come up with some really good resources that you give out often. So you have those, the case taking form, the family case record. There's a couple different ones you have to help people know where to start because you were saying before we have these, if you don't have a protocol or if you have one or you don't have those remedies, maybe.
Hmm.
Um, in acute cases that can happen often where people are building their stash and don't have all the protocol remedies yet.
Right.
And then you have these huge materia medica and repertory, and they're like, what do I do? That was so overwhelming to me
Hmm.
for years starting
Hmm.
homeopathy.
Yep.
So this is going to be great.
Yeah. I remember getting these books and being like, what do I even do with this? And
Yep.
yeah. So let's do this is really basic information, but it's information that a lot of people maybe don't know unless you've been in my mentorship program and have actually practiced this with me.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So let's first start with, are we talking chronic or acute first?
Either. You can use this process with either.
Okay. And when you're doing this, are you okay, let's say, so in a chronic picture, I can imagine we're going to talk about much more in-depth question for a person, right? Like maybe know more of their big picture. But acutes, do you need to know all that?
It
Like their
depends.
personality, their disposition.
Well, it depends.
Okay.
So, uh-oh, my internet's being weird. Can you still hear me and see
Yeah,
me?
your audio is good.
Okay, but my picture's frozen.
Just for a second. It's good now.
Okay. Okay. So, it depends actually on the acute. So you Well, and I know that's a hard answer to swallow because you're like, well, this isn't helpful. How am I going to know when? Over time, you'll get better and better at this and you'll learn when. Let me just give an example. So personality, I think I would want to know regular personality, especially in children. So if the child has an earache, and they're really angry and irritable and they're crying and screaming, I want to know, is that normal for them? Of course, they're not crying and screaming all day, every day, but are they normally pretty irritable and angry and, you know,
Yeah.
or is this just totally different, a different presentation of their personality? I need to know that. That
Okay.
makes a difference.
And maybe let's say somebody comes and is saying, I want help with strep throat. This is their sixth time having it this year. So maybe you would treat that acutely, but also encourage chronic care
Absolutely.
at the same
Yeah,
time.
yeah. If you're having recurring illnesses very often, that's actually a chronic condition, but we can address the acute occurrence with homeopathy too.
Okay, so I remember, I'm thinking back to when I first started this, and I remember asking, I think I did ask you this. Do you have like a form of questions you just bullet point ask? How, if I were totally new when I remember what you told me, but what do we typically tell people? Here's your baseline. Here are some bullet points, starting points.
Yeah. So first of all, I'll start with when I was in college, I learned an acronym to help to do what we're getting ready to do. But I changed the acronym because I went to a London college and they spell etiology with an A. We spell etiology with an E, so I
Mhm.
just changed it around and made it, and it took me a minute. Like I didn't just pop it out of my head. I had to sit there and look at the letters and try to spell something that actually you could remember. So,
Yeah.
so I came up with CMELTS, CMELTS. So if you write that down on the, left side of a piece of paper, and this the acronym, and then C is for chief complaint, M is for modalities, E is for etiology, L is for location, T is for timing, and S is for sensation. That's the information you need to get.
Okay. So, and that order doesn't necessarily matter specifically. You just need to get those points covered.
That's right.
Okay. So do we want to like practice what does that mean? Like what is a chief complaint? Could it be
Yeah.
more than one? How do you prioritize the approach to that?
Yeah, good question. So your chief complaint, is maybe sore throat. And but there can be concomitants, which is not in that, you don't have to worry too much about that. You can list all of the symptoms and, up with the chief, it can be chief complaints, more than one. Or there can be a chief complaint of sore throat, and then the concomitants are fever, weakness, dizziness, whatever other symptoms are coming along with this sore throat. Either way is fine. We're getting the same information. So to keep it simple, say chief complaints. So you're listing that's where you just list your symptoms. What are they? Or if you have a diagnosis, if you have the diagnosis of strep throat or whooping cough, then that can be your chief complaint, and then we'll get the rest of the information.
Okay. You're going to say something.
That's okay. Go ahead.
Um, how then, let's say those are their chief complaints. Maybe we should get to this question later, but how would you track improvement? Like, let's say they have a sore throat. Well, what if they're like the next day when my throat's still sore?
Yeah, good question. So you have the person rate their symptoms on a scale of 1 to 10. Um, each of those chief complaints. So what do you rate your sore throat on a scale of 1 to 10, where 10 is the worst? You write it down. Then what do you rate your dizziness? What do you rate your your weakness, your fatigue, your coughing, whatever. Have them rate each thing.
Okay, so then their scale, and it doesn't really matter what that 10 is for them, right? Like maybe somebody's 9 is somebody else's 6.
That's right. That's
I know
right.
some people have gotten really hung up on that before. Well,
Yeah.
I'm not dying, and
Yeah.
really overthinking that scale. So,
Yeah. Yeah, definitely don't get into analysis paralysis when you're rating yourself, right? But,
yeah.
and then there's a chart. I can never remember what it's called for kids where
Yeah.
you can find it
Face.
online. Yeah, where it's got the faces,
Yep.
the smiley face to the really sad or mad face, so they can point to which one they feel about each thing.
Yeah. That's so smart. I don't know why I've never used that for my kids.
Mm.
Like I know that that's a thing, but you know it is really funny. Side note to this 1 to 10 thing. My kids now will automatically, my throat hurts like a 2. Or
I
like it
love
was a 5
that.
and now it's a 1. They do, I don't even have to ask them. And so in our family, almost daily, you'll hear something is on a 1 to 10 scale, even if it's like this food is an 8 out of 10.
That's hilarious.
It's,
I love it.
I didn't really think about it's just so common, but it is funny now because I always ask them, even as a little kid, they don't, I mean, I have some of them say like it's a 2 in 1 7. Like they don't know what that
Yeah.
means, my 3-year-old.
Yeah.
But he does have that in his mind to like put it
I love it.
number.
I love it. Yeah. So that's how you're
Okay.
going to rate it. So when you go to
Yeah,
follow up, you ask them again to rate their symptoms, and yeah, then they'll rate it again. Then that's how you can tell if you're making progress.
improvement. Um, so then the E or A, depending on where you're from,
So
etiology.
M
Oh, did we do E? Oh, M is, yeah, melt. M comes first. Modalities.
so modalities, yeah. So the modalities are what makes it better and what makes it worse. And so most people, if they're sick, and you ask them what makes it better. Not most, but some people are like, nothing.
Nothing.
If there
Yeah.
was anything that made it better, I wouldn't even be talking to you right now. That's
Yeah.
not the point. The point is, if you have a sore throat, does it feel better to drink a warm drink or an ice
Mhm.
cold drink? Though that's really important information. Not that it makes it go away. So you might have to educate them a little bit on what that means and then what makes it worse. So it might, it could be the warm drink, the cold drink, going outside, talking, coughing,
Mhm.
breathing in cold air. If you so the Hepar sulf sore throat or cough is just breathing in the cold air is makes it worse. So they will cover their mouth, with a scarf or something while they talk, or a hand or something while they talk, or to go outside. They don't want to breathe in the cold air. So movement, it could be every time I move, it gets worse or whatever. So what makes it better? What makes it worse? Your modalities, write those down.
I have found too, people will say those when you didn't even ask specifically.
That's true. Yeah.
Or they'll say, I really want this certain thing. Is that different saying I want hot drinks versus hot drinks makes it feel better?
Um, it may be. So if they just say, because that might mean that hot drinks actually make it feel better. If they say, I want hot drinks, that might just be a
Yeah.
different way of saying, yes, when I drink a hot drink, right? So you just kind
Yeah.
of clarify. But yeah,
Mm.
you're right. While they're telling you their symptoms, you might pick up on modalities in that and you write those down.
Yeah. Okay.
Mhm.
Um, so have that form already written out. So if you need to jot around, you can do it.
Yep.
Yeah.
You don't have to go in order. That's right.
Okay, so modalities makes it better or worse. And E now to the E. Okay.
Yeah, E for etiology.
Etiology.
Yep. Etiology means the cause. And we don't always know the cause. So it could be, a virus. It could be that they might say, oh, they caught it from their friend at school, or they caught it from whatever, a sibling.
Mhm.
But it could be emotional. So this is where I want to know, maybe they had a shocking event happen and then they got sick right after that. I see that. So your emotions can make you sick, physically sick, when we get a shock to the mental emotional system. And or, it could be a UTI after you were intimate, then you got a UTI, that's the etiology was the intimacy, right? So we may or may not know the etiology, and if we don't know or don't have, any idea, it's okay. We don't
Yeah.
have to know it.
So we can just go symptom based
Yep.
is kind of what you're saying, whatever's presenting. So even stuff like traveling, sometimes that can be helpful to know. Doesn't always change. Let's
Yep.
say you have diarrhea, you can still take care of that without
True.
knowing if you have a parasite or if you have food poisoning. So
Yep.
I try, sometimes that's hard because I can get hung up on, well, what I think that's a thing in general in the natural community, trying to find the root cause. You hear that a lot. Everybody wants to
Mhm.
know where everything came from. And it's not that that's not important, but we don't always need that.
So I'm glad you brought that up. So I just had this conversation today with somebody who is brand new to homeopathy, and she had a really good question to me. She wanted to know, well, then how do you find the root cause? I don't. Your body does. And so
Yeah.
it's not even homeopathy that's healing your body. Homeopathy is stimulating your body to heal itself. So your body knows what it needs, and your body knows. Well, a lot of people these days are really hung up on wanting to know the name of it. They want to put it, when they put a name to it, it makes them feel better. And I'm sorry about that. I really am. If I could encourage you to change your thinking on that, you really could be a lot more free
I
because,
think that's a really unique thing to homeopathy, though, because even in the natural world,
yep,
any other practice usually does want to know. They want
yeah,
blood work or a stool sample or a GI map or allergy testing, and they address it that way.
yeah.
The only exception I can think of is sometimes when people do muscle testing, if that's something you do, that
Mhm.
I think sometimes they test that way, which is I mean, less concrete, I guess. It's not like you have
Yeah,
evidence
I think
of
it
it.
can be, I think it's not the same as a blood test, but also
Right.
then I don't believe that all of these tests whether it be muscle testing or blood or hair
Right.
analysis, I don't believe that they're all absolutely correct always, right? So I don't like to lean
Well,
on it
I
too
mean,
much.
okay, to back that up, I agree with you because I think when you start seeing patterns, like when I talk to enough people who have seen the same type of practitioners or something, and they all have the same problems.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's not credible. I'm just saying it is interesting to hear
Yeah.
that you start seeing these patterns. And
Yeah.
like everybody can have all the same. Maybe we do.
Everybody, yeah, everybody has candida or everybody has
Yeah,
whatever.
parasite.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So we did etiology, location.
Uh-oh. Hold on. Sorry. I messed up my microphone.
Okay. I can still hear you. Okay.
Yeah. All right. So, location. Yeah, so that's, super self-explanatory, sore throat's going to be the throat. And so that's might not even be a question that you ask the person, but you make a mental note because what could make a difference is left or right. So
Hmm.
if it's, a left-sided sore throat, those are different remedies maybe than a right-sided sore throat or the left ear, the right ear, or but also you might think of something other example too, Bree, but if somebody says um, I have congestion. That could mean sinuses,
Yeah.
nose, throat, chest.
Yes.
Don't just take congestion. We have to know where.
Headaches.
Yep.
That can make a big difference to determine what's the cause. It doesn't matter necessarily what the cause is, but different remedies can help.
Yeah.
Headaches can be tricky anyway, so the more
Oof. Yeah.
I can get for headaches is great.
Yeah.
Another one recently, I only thought of this because I just recently talked to someone, is the cough. Sometime like the cough can feel like it's a tickle in the back of your throat. It can feel like it's in your esophagus or feel like it's deep in your chest. And for coughs, I have found that those used to be so hard when you have little kids. I don't know. I mean, I had little kids who every cough, I'm like, I don't,
Mhm.
how in the world do I decide? And thinking through where it sounds like it's coming from
Yeah.
has helped me in choosing remedies a lot. But I can't think of other acute situations where location is
Right. Yeah.
huge.
Yeah.
Um, okay, so location, LT, timing.
Timing. So you need to know, when did this start?
Mm,
And let me tell you why. So you want to know, when did this start, and was it a fast or slow onset? Those are the two aspects of timing. Um, okay, so somebody comes up to you at church and says, "What have you got for a cough?" And you're like, "Okay, I can help." And you start asking questions, and we address acute conditions differently than we address chronic conditions. So we want to know, how long have you had this cough? It could even be a headache. It could even be a sore throat. I mean, these days,
mm,
all these normally very acute things could become chronic. So if he's had this cough for 4, 5, 6 weeks, and you're trying to address it acutely, then you're going to get nowhere. You're going to use 85 different remedies and nothing's going to happen, because once it becomes chronic, you have to give the remedy more time to act. You don't
mhm.
change the remedy too often. And I go through all of those, really, those details in the mentorship program and the coaching calls. But those are the two aspects you want to know. When did it start? And well, even if it was just 3 weeks ago. So 3 weeks ago is still acute, but it might take a little bit longer because it's been around longer. And then how was it a fast or slow onset? So we've got slow onset remedies like gelsemium, and we've got fast onset remedies like belladonna and aconite, and so those are the two aspects of timing. That's it.
Okay, so what about things like the time of day? Let's say with a cough or something, does that fall under timing or modality, or does that matter as much for an acute?
Yeah, so if it's worse at, from 4 to 8 p.m., then that's going to be a modality. So if the,
Okay.
yeah,
Mhm.
I think it would be under modalities. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so for timing, that's timing, sensation.
Sensation. So without asking leading questions, try your best. Sometimes I still have to do it. But you're going to ask, what does it feel like? Describe your headache. And sometimes they have a really hard time and they just can't describe it. And so you give them a few ideas that are maybe different and see if they can pick one. But you know, the sensation can be sharp or shooting or throbbing or stabbing, or it feels like I'm swallowing glass. It feels like a stick is poking in my, it feels like a fish bone is in my throat. All, you know, whatever they can describe. And so you want to try to get them to describe it in their own words and then don't change it. You know, don't say, "Oh, she probably means," because these weird words could, you know, be in the materia medica and we use them.
Yeah, I tell a lot of people that when they're like, I think they feel silly about what they want to say to
Yeah.
explain it. And
Hmm.
I'll tell them those words are probably perfect. Like
Yeah.
whatever you're about to say, it is not going to sound weird to me.
Yep.
Because they are. You'll read some weird stuff.
That's that's good. That's good. Hmm.
So that's CMELTS.
Yeah,
You can use that chronically too.
you can. Yep.
Okay.
And you should. Yes. And so we in my mentorship program, we do these coaching calls. And I don't, you know, I'm not going to say a day and time because that could change, you know, later. So, but we do weekly coaching calls where we can practice this. I actually teach once per month in these coaching calls. I teach very specifics on acute conditions and how to address those using CMELTS. And we practice. We do a practice case, and you can bring your own personal questions and so those monthly calls right now at the time of this recording covers one is headaches, one is GI disturbances, sinusitis, cold cough flu, sore throats. Oh, and then one is just acute case taking in general. So we spend a whole hour and a half, 2 hours where I teach you acute. This right here was condensed, right? And just a piece of that, but I really teach deeply on how to choose the remedy, how long, how to know when to switch, how to know when to keep going and all
Yeah.
that in those. So um in the show notes here, you'll find the a link to go and check that out, the mentorship program. You can join anytime. I do have sales throughout the year, but you can just jump in anytime you want to. And then you can, you know, like if you were to sign up today, you could come to this week's call. So you could get started right away.
Hmm. So this was focused on taking the case, not now here's the specifics of moving forward. All of those things I think are it's not a quick podcast answer. And not because we're trying to like withhold, but it is a lot. It can be really involved and there's a lot of remedies. So that is what you practice in the mentorship program.
That's
Or, I
right.
mean, and even in gateway classes that you do and other courses you teach, you go over a lot of those ideas,
Hmm.
get group discussion
Yeah.
often in those. So lots of ways to learn,
Yeah.
but I love those mentorship calls because you get to
Yeah.
practice and interact with other people and share your thoughts, your ideas.
And there's no limit to the questions you ask. So in Gateway, I tell you, I'm not taking personal cases here. We're not going to,
Right.
you know, we're not going to talk about anything but homeopathy. In my coaching calls, wide open, no limit. What do you want? What do you need?
Yeah.
And I keep those groups small. So yes, come join us in the coaching calls. They're really fun.
Oh, good.
Most of the time, and it's 6 months of calls. 6 months. And so a lot of people will renew at the end of the 6 months because they've enjoyed it so much. And we become like a family where we all, you know, pray for each other and laugh together and cry together and all the things.
So sweet.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, that's right. That's what I wanted to say is that case management, case taking is pretty easy. but then it's the case
Yeah.
management where it gets tricky,
Yeah.
and that's what I can't teach in a podcast.
Yeah.
So
And the support is important. That I feel like that kind of evolves all the time. That
yeah,
changes based on the person. So having people to bounce things off of is really, really helpful. Thank
yep.
you so much.
Thank
I
you.
loved that. That was wonderful. I'm hoping that's really helpful to all of you guys listening.
Yep. I hope you all have a great night, and we'll see you next time.